Hello.
Welcome.
Hello, Robert.
Oh, hey, Robert.
Welcome.
Good to see you
back.
again. Yeah, glad you're here.
Hope everybody's doing well this week so far. Man, time's going by fast. I just can't.
So Diane is
still working.
Still working. She'll probably join us here in a minute.
Yep.
Hey, Bob. Welcome.
Hi, Bob and Sue. Bob and Sue.
Bob and Sue.
Yeah. Bob and Sue.
So welcome, everyone. My name's Dan. I'm the author of BibleProphecyandTruth.com. This is my wife, Kelleen, who is co-hosting and chat moderating. And we will soon have Diane with us, our sister in Christ, who is also Kelleen's blood sister from Minnesota. She'll be joining us shortly. And today we're going to do part 2 of the story of the Bible and dig into what happened after the flood. So welcome.
Welcome back, everybody. So would you kindly smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, follow us on Rumble. Hi, Lainey.
Hey, Lane.
And then please turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any great uploads. And please go over to the website. I'm going to tell you what it is. There's a banner rolling on the bottom right now. And please go to videos.prophecyandtruth.com, videos.prophecyandtruth.com. And that's the website. Okay. That'll take you to where the video is right now. And there's other videos there. When you're over there, please read and look at everything that's over there. Please sign up for the newsletter because that's really important because we get them once a month.
It's periodic. Whenever I have something
and
to say,
videos.
Basically.
And the videos. So do that and then share this show with literally everyone you know.
Yes. So welcome, Robert. I'm not going to share the Zoom code on the live stream.
We don't even know who you are, bud.
It's the same Robert that was talking to us last time. But we've got an email conversation going on, and then we'll talk to you privately. So, but welcome to the live stream. So let me share my screen here, and I will. Before we go there. So there's a couple of things in the news related to biblical prophecy. Of course, we're waiting for the confirmation of the covenant. We're waiting for that event to happen, whether it's the Abraham Accords or a forced two-state solution, however it comes about. And then of course we're waiting for the trumpets. The 5th trumpet, the 6th trumpet, and we're looking at all of the signs that Jesus gave that would herald his coming, which if you're new to this channel and you have not seen this before, if you go to, let me go here, if you go to BibleProphecyandTruth.com and scroll about 2/3 of the way down to where you see this picture, this is where I've got documentation on the signs that Jesus gave. Of course, you can read it yourself, but this is where I talk about it. I've got graphs and charts and everything showing what's going on in the world, showing how that literally all of the signs that Jesus gave us are coming to pass right now as we speak. So one of them is earthquakes in diverse places. And in Luke, it actually... I know I can't talk today.
I know.
In Luke, it says great earthquakes in diverse places. And we've had some very major earthquakes this year. And we're at around 120,000 or so right now for the year. Looking at going to hit probably 130,000 this year, which is astronomically higher than normal. So there's nothing really new in the last 7 days as far as large earthquakes, but we've had a total of 1,905 in the last 7 days, which, there's almost 2,000 earthquakes in the last week. And we're still getting tons of earthquakes where we had the 8.8 here just a while ago there in Russia. So we're watching that. we're of course watching all of the signs. One of the things that we're looking at that we talked about last time is the magnetic field is weakening, and I showed you the little graphic that showed the documentation where scientists have actually studied the field for the last 200 years. They've been studying it and watching it, and it cannot last. It won't last another 2,000 years based on the way it's decaying, which just proves the 6,000 year timeline of the Bible. But here's another one where, the NASA is worried about the magnetic field weakening because, of course, if you don't believe in God, you don't understand what's going on. The magnetic field weakening is terrifying to people, because it's the end of the world, right? And, when Jesus answered the question, when is the end of the world? It's the end of mankind ruling himself, the end of evil people. It's not the end of the world, the earth itself. But people are afraid of that. And that's one of the things that God told us, was that the men's hearts will be failing them for fear when these signs are happening and because of the things that are happening. And here's an example right here where people are actually terrified about this and what's going to happen. They need to pick up their Bible and read it. So every country is testing the emergency alert system right now, Robert said. I hadn't heard that. That's not surprising though, because I would be really surprised if we don't have another emergency that comes upon the world. I'll have to look that up. Yeah, because they're trying to scare us into giving them control. It hasn't worked yet, but they're not going to stop. That's for sure. And then the elites have been building underground bunkers. We heard about what's the Facebook guy? Zuckerberg, thank you. And it was a Z. Something.
What would you do without me?
I don't know. I would forget everybody's name.
I know.
But Zuckerberg, started during the COVID pandemic. And, there's all these super rich people that are building these heavily fortified, heavily stocked underground bunkers.
Yeah, fortified ranch. Fortified something ranch or fortified.
So, yeah. Well, so when we're going to talk about that, Robert, when the mark of the beast comes around, it's going to be, of course, it's not going to happen until the Antichrist is in power. So it wasn't like the vaccine passport or any of that stuff like people were trying to say. But you definitely don't want to take the mark of the beast. Yeah, that will damn you for eternity. Absolutely. So, but we will, and none of us we don't have an underground bunker either, Robert. Unless, we're not super rich. We don't have the funds to do anything like that. But what I always talk about, especially when I talk about things like this, is, God told us what's going to happen so that we don't have to wonder. And one of the most terrifying things is the unknown, right? If you don't know what's right around the corner and you know it's something bad, that's more terrifying than seeing it for what it is. And God told us everything that's going to happen. And the way we really need to be prepared, we can prep all we want. We can stock things up. We could, if we have the funds to build a bunker, we could build a bunker, but all of that could be taken away in a moment, right? You can't count on any worldly things, although it is smart to at least have some, extra water and food and things like that. But what we really need to do to prepare for the days that are coming is to get spiritually right with God, to walk in the Spirit, to pray without ceasing, to be absolutely 100% in obedience, following God, serving Him, working in a ministry. And that doesn't mean going to some church that's teaching lies. I'm not talking about that kind of ministry. I'm talking about a real ministry, a ministry that's teaching the truth, and with people that truly love the Lord, not people that are out to make a buck. And, there's so many people that have religious or godly channels and things, and all they're trying to do is make money on God. They're not serving him. They're teaching lies to try to get people to listen. And, that's awful. That's evil. That's a sinful thing. God does not honor that.
Hey,
We need to.
Okay, I got it.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks. We need to trust God, and that's how we prepare for this eventuality. Now we know that this is never going to happen. The magnetic field is never going to completely go away and destroy the earth, because Jesus is coming back before that happens. We know that, absolute certainty.
Hmm.
So let's continue on here. That's all I've got on the when is the end of the world, anything new there. I've got some videos I'm going to show later. We're talking about the timeline. And I guess it's a good time, since we're talking about this, the magnetic field, and how it's, it really proves the 6,000 year timeline. I've got another little video that I have here that's very interesting, from the 1813 version of the Bible. Check this out.
This Bible from 1813 has something very interesting. It is a facts page that contains a list of people and events in chronological order. It says, whereupon we reckon that from Adam unto Christ are 3,947 years, 6 months and 10 days. And from the birth of Christ to this present year is 1814 years. Then the whole sum and number of years, from the beginning of the world unto this present year, is 5,788, 6 months, and the said odd 10 days. In the year 1814 the world really was 5,788 years old. This year, 2022, the earth would be approximately 5,998 years old.
So is that interesting or what?
This Bible told.
That's, oops, let me go back.
Why is it? Why does
because
that
this 1813 version of the Bible, the commentators are actually talking about the timelines given to us in the Bible, and it shows, if I can get it to pause at the right point, that the earth is actually 6,023 years old now, or 6,003 years old now. Exactly, according to the 1813 version of the Bible, and what they were talking about back then. That's absolutely fascinating to me. And it's just another one of those things that proves to us that the Bible is true, that the earth is 6,000 years old. It's not billions of years old. It's everything found in the earth proves the flood of Genesis. We talk about that in our live stream on where we talked about the creation versus evolution. And it's just, it's, to me, it's proven beyond any shadow of a doubt that the flood happened. Everything that the Bible says historically has been proven with over 25,000 archaeological digs. Literally everything talked about in the Bible has been found in the archaeological record on the earth. And it's everything. The Bible is absolutely 100% true. And if you believe that, it needs to be a belief that goes beyond just hoping that it's true, right? This is what a lot of people that call themselves Christians don't really have a firm belief. They don't have a really true faith. They just think, well, it might be true. And they kind of, believe something, but most of them really don't even know what they believe because they've never read the Bible. And that's why it's so important to read the Bible for ourselves and let God show us his truth through his word. But if you're a Christian, you need to know that God is. You need to have a faith that's not just well, I really hope so. That's not really faith. True faith and true belief is knowledge. It's knowledge. It's a knowing that God is. And there's a big, big difference. So, so let's continue, talk about a couple of things in the news, and then we'll go into the story of the Bible. The war on Christianity is happening big time. Here in Maine, a judge wants to cancel a mom's parental rights because she's a Christian. I mean, literally, the judge said that the custodial mother is a fit parent except for the fact that she is a Christian. So the judge is saying that because she's a Christian, that makes her an unfit parent. This is a war on Christianity it's really escalating a lot. I mean, in the last few years, it's gone from you haven't really heard about anything to there's this war going on and trying to destroy Christianity. It's been going on for much longer than that, but it's only been recently that they've really come out in the open. It's always been done kind of behind the scenes, and they've been kind of slowly but surely dragging this into reality. But now it's something they're not even afraid to talk about anymore. So, hey, Diane, welcome.
Hello.
You look so beautiful.
Thank you.
So we're just starting on the news, showing this article where in Maine, a judge is actually wanting to cancel a mother's parental rights because she's a Christian. Yeah, war on Christianity.
I thought it was an adopted mother, a mom who adopted the child or whatever. No?
Where did you read that?
I didn't. I said I thought. Okay. I thought that's what you
okay.
said.
No.
Bob said, hi, Diane.
So this is an actual mother. And when I read the article, it was actually a mother and a father that has been this horrific custody battle.
Oh, okay.
And the judge, it's a federal judge that's actually ruling on this now and saying that she's an unfit mother because she's a Christian. Yeah.
Is that what the judge said, though, that she's an unfit mother because she's a Christian?
Oh, she's a fit parent, except for the fact that she's a Christian.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the war on Christianity. So, Robert, I know that you're asking some questions here, but here's what I think you should do, and it's what I suggested last time, is after our live today, go to videos.prophecyandtruth.com. We linked it for you in the chat last time, and it'll be on the banner that we have on the screen at the end, in the beginning and the end. Go to videos.prophecyandtruth.com and just watch all of the videos on the main page. And if you have time, if you can binge watch, go to some of the others, go to the truth section and read, watch those. Go to the book part of the site and watch that has the entire book. I'm just going to show everyone here. If you go to videos.prophecyandtruth.com, there's a link right at the top. I thought there was a link. Yeah, there's a link right at the top to my main website, which is the documentation, right? It has all of my entire book in written format here. But if you like to watch videos, on the video site, I have the entire book, entire book in video, where you have biblical prophecy, biblical truth, creation versus evolution. You can basically watch my entire book, which is really just my notes on studying the Word of God. So
watch all those videos, Robert.
Go and watch the videos. If you go to the home page, there is tons of video here, just on the front page, the story of the Bible, which is what we're talking about now, then what God is doing, what's going on in the world right now, right? The Antichrist is not in power yet, but it's coming soon. And so we need to be prepared for that. So definitely go there and watch videos and read your Bible. Start right now.
Okay, dude.
Yeah. Seriously, that'll help you.
Yeah, it'll help you understand.
To gain some knowledge and understanding of what's going on in the world. So, and then, in a biblical perspective, right? What's going on in the world matches
Scripture.
exactly what God said would happen. And we're literally watching it. So,
And we're glad you're here. So keep coming back.
yeah. Good to see you here, Robert. I'm glad you came back.
Yeah. Look at this, Annie.
So what we're waiting for right now is the confirmation of the covenant, which is the covenant that God made with Abraham, where he said, this is going to be the land that your seed, your offspring will have. It will be theirs. And this is the border. So the confirmation, when the Bible talks about he will confirm the covenant with many, talking about the Antichrist, it's going to be giving Israel the right to exist and drawing her borders. That will be what is the confirmation of the covenant. And there will be many who sign this agreement, this peace deal. And so we're watching to see if it's the Abraham Accords. Is it going to be a two-state solution?
Which I think
Or is it going to be both? Because here's the Crown Prince, Saudi Arabia, telling Trump that he wants to join the Abraham Accords, but only if they create a Palestinian state.
Which I think that they're going to do it. And that's just me. I'm just saying that's just my opinion. I think that's what's going to happen. And that's when you're going to see all the armies around Jerusalem, just like the Bible said. And I really believe that.
I know.
I
do
really
too.
believe that.
I think when Jesus said, when you see Jerusalem compassed with armies, then know that the desolation is nigh, where the Antichrist will take over. It's going to be a multi-nation army, the
participation,
UN, and many nations with armies in and around Jerusalem to force the peace.
Did you say the UN or the EU?
The UN.
They're on board. They're ready. They're ready to start this peace thing. And I really believe that it's going to be. And the prince said he wants to get this going like right now. Immediately was the word.
They want it to happen quickly. So we're waiting with bated breath. Right? I know. So, and Robert, seek the Spirit of God, seek God and his Spirit, because that none of us will be able to withstand the lying wonders of Satan and the Antichrist and what's going to happen without the Spirit of God in us. And that is what will give us the ability to overcome.
Yeah. So, he feels afraid. And
we don't need to fear.
No, you just need to love God,
Yes.
Love God.
So, and seek his Spirit.
Yeah.
So they're also pledging a $1 trillion investment in the US.
That was really interesting. That was so interesting. Well, he said 600 billion. And so when they were having their meeting, Trump said, well, I'm kind of hoping that he'll say a good trillion. Well, then the prince said, all right, I'll invest $1 trillion.
I know, because they're super, super oil rich anyway, right? A trillion isn't even
nothing to
big
them.
of a deal to them.
No.
Yeah.
Well, it's a little bit of money
over time, right? Because that's not a one-time deal. That's an overtime. They're going to invest $1 trillion. Yeah. And then, talking about the UN Security Council approved Trump's Gaza ceasefire plan. Russia and China abstained from the vote, which is interesting that they did that.
What about North Korea? Did you hear about them?
I have no idea. I didn't hear about that. But yes, Robert, and loving God is everything.
Yes.
And pray.
And don't feel afraid.
Fast and pray and seek the Spirit of God. And he said, seek and you will find. So if you're truly loving God, seeking him, you're going to find him. And I'm here to tell you right now, Robert, I know for a fact that God sent you to my channel.
Oh, yeah.
I know that.
Yeah.
He sent you here to get the truth. And I'm glad you're here. I'm glad.
Yes, I'm glad you're here.
Back.
Yeah.
And I'm serious about talking to you privately. So let me know a good time and we'll chat via Zoom.
Yeah.
Sometime here in the next few days. But so this is very interesting because a lot of people don't understand that Russia and China and the US and the EU all have veto rights to pretty much anything that happens in the UN. So we can just say, nah, and it won't happen.
Right.
And all of those. And it came out of World War II. When they established the UN and they established the Security Council, and it used to be the what was it, the League of, not the League of Nations was from before the UN, but it was the the something of four, and it's like now there's like 7 or 8. It keeps kind of coming and going, but there's some power and there's some real control that people don't understand goes behind the UN. The UN's just kind of the face that everyone sees, that the world sees, and that they present themselves to the world. But the real power is going on in meetings we don't even know about. So, and the UN endorsement of the Trump plan with a path to a Palestinian state, of course, concerns Israel.
Well, and Israel doesn't know what's happening in prophecy, and they don't understand that there's going to be armies that are keeping the peace, and they're going to be able to resume animal sacrifices and be able to worship the way they choose. And he doesn't know that this is coming. So right now he only sees this at face value, and he's like, wait a minute.
Yeah, they just understand that Islam hates them and is trying to kill them. And you know, when
they see the peace treaty, then
Judea and Samaria, you know, we've got Islamic State linked activity on the rise coming through Judea and Samaria. Now it's, of course, they don't want a 2-state solution because this is just going to get worse, because they used to do everything out of Gaza, because whatever they did in Gaza was completely blind to Israel and anyone else, because they had complete control of Gaza. Right. Hamas and Islam had absolute control of Gaza, and that's where all the attacks came from. But now that Gaza has been, defeated, now they're starting to come out of Judea and Samaria. And this is, so of course it's very concerning to Israel.
Yeah, they just don't understand. So
yeah, we know what's happening because God told us, and we believe God. But like you were saying, Netanyahu and the Jews that believe in Judaism and don't believe in Jesus don't know. They have no idea what's going on. They don't read the Bible. They don't know about the prophecies.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not going to be for long.
Yeah.
They'll get their peace treaty and they'll think they're okay.
Yeah.
For 3.5 years.
It will be for 3.5 years. Yeah.
Not the 7.
Yeah. And then so the Israeli defense chief is laying out Plan B, rejecting the U.S. pathway to a Palestinian state. So these things with Israel going against everybody.
Yeah.
This is why I really think that we're going to see the confirmation of the covenant come with a forced peace treaty, where it's going to be forced upon Israel.
Mm-hmm.
It's everything is pointing to that more and more and more as we get closer. Hamas rejected the Trump plan, refuses to disarm.
Mm-hmm.
It denies now that they even accepted Trump's plan. So they're going beyond just refusing to go into the next step. They're now saying they never even agreed to, rejecting the UN resolution. So this is another reason why
they can't be trusted.
They're with Israel and Hamas both refusing so this peace deal is going to get blown up, right? The ceasefire that Trump orchestrated is already failing.
Yeah, so, it's crumbling, yeah.
So a forced peace treaty seems to be right on the horizon when you look at this. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. Netanyahu insists on Hamas disarmament, of course. But remember, the United States is saying, well, maybe they don't need to disarm, which was part of the agreement. But it's all kind of blowing up on them now anyway. So,
but that's when they're going to bring all the armies. And I think that's how Trump is going to present it as, look, we're going to get everybody involved, which is the U.S., meaning they're going to put more soldiers over there, and they're going to surround Israel, or I guess Jerusalem.
Yeah, because Jesus said specifically Jerusalem, not Israel. Jerusalem would be compassed with armies. Yeah. And that's where, Jerusalem is basically divided in half by the east and the west. Jerusalem is Muslims on the east, west is Israel and the Jews, and that's where kind of the dividing line is. So that's where all of the troops will be, right? They'll be keeping the peace. They'll be forcing that. So
yeah.
So
well, at first, I think Netanyahu will be happy because there'll be peace.
Well, they'll get their peace treaty.
They'll get their peace. They just don't see it coming, so they don't understand. But they're going to be happy, and the Jews can then worship as they choose. And
yeah, it's too bad that there aren't more Jews that are Messianic Jews. But
I know.
Yeah, really.
All we can do is teach the truth and hope that people will listen. That's all we can do. This is another article I thought was interesting because they found 4 Palestinians that are held for Islamic State ties. They were prepping for the end of days war. And that's, when we understand that Satan set up exact duplicate prophecies in Islam that match the Bible to a T, except it's the exact opposite, right? The good guys of Islam are the bad guys of the Bible. All right, the Antichrist and false prophet will be the Muslim Mahdi and most likely the Pope, maybe even Pope Leo or one that comes after him. Maybe something drastic will occur and there'll be a new Pope. Or it could be Leo himself. He's definitely following right along in Pope Francis's footsteps. And
he's not really old or anything.
Things can change overnight.
Yeah.
Sure can.
So we don't know. We'll know when it happens. We'll see it. And it's fascinating to watch as the prophecies of the Bible are unfolding. It's just
I just cannot believe that we're going to see it.
I know.
It's just so crazy.
Yeah. And Robert, I see you talking about a playlist there. If you go to, let me just plug it in here for you. If you go to YouTube/Prophecy and Truth, I've got the videos site that I told you about, but this, I'm going to go ahead and post it in the chat, is my YouTube channel. And it has a number of playlists on the channel, and it has all of our live streams, and it has literally every video we've ever made. So if you prefer YouTube, you can definitely watch everything there as well. You don't have to go to the video site. The video site is just ad-free. If you don't have accounts and you don't like to watch ads, then you can watch them all on videos.prophecyandtruth.com. So this is, Islam is waiting for their Mahdi with universal anticipation. They're all they say their Mahdi is already here. They're just waiting for him to appear. And I agree.
I agree too.
The Antichrist is alive and well right now.
Oh yeah, he is.
He just has not taken power yet. Yeah. And then this is, Palestine or nothing. Canada.
I'm really getting sick of Canada.
To mark Israel on a woman's place of birth. Like, you can't put that you were born in Israel. Why? Because
I'm tired of Canada.
They hate the Jews. Canada is definitely gone off the deep end. Big
they've
time.
always been a real liberal country, and if it happens in Canada, then it's going to make its way down.
They don't get involved in anything either.
Well, they're always waving the white flag. Yeah, they don't. I don't even think they have a military. I think they do, but it's.
I haven't ever researched it, but I'm sure they do. But it's probably very small.
But now,
I
they're
just realized,
really crazy.
Yeah,
assisted suicide.
They're
stuff
going
like that.
woke so badly. I
Yeah.
just realized, Robert.
France owns part of Canada, and I think England owns part of Canada.
Well, England, the King of England is still the King of Canada. You know,
Yeah.
it by law on the books, right? He really is.
And
Yeah.
Australia too, right?
I believe so. But it's funny, Robert. I just realized you're on YouTube, so posting my channel there was kind of
I know.
redundant of me. But anyway, I got
It's
distracted.
on fire.
So, and this is just a true statement here. Not all Muslims are violent, but Islam is violent, and the Quran actually commands Muslims to be violent, to kill. And the thing is that there's a lot of westernized Muslims, especially, that don't even know. It's just like Christians that don't read the Bible.
Yeah.
Muslims don't even read the Quran, you know, and they have no idea what's really in there. And, you know, they're taught through taqiyya, the doctrine in Islam, that it's not only okay to lie, but that you should lie in order to assist in the ascendancy of Islam. And the Western Muslims are all deceived into thinking it's really a peaceful, loving, wonderful religion. But as they grow more and more devout, they start learning the true nature of Islam, which is just hatred and violence and evil. But it's, you know, it's true. A lot of them are deceived. Not all Muslims are violent because
they don't read their own
they're
Bible.
deceived. And, you know, people are people too. Some of them don't really want to do the atrocities that the Quran commands them to do. But they're just, you know, who they are is, I'm going to show you here on my website. I've got an article about Islam being a religion of peace or violence. And if you haven't seen that, definitely check it out. There's a lot of modern day Muslims talking about the things out of the Quran and the violence, but I have these pictures at the bottom. Oops. Oh, now I've done it. Let me try to get this back here. And my mouse going crazy. Yeah. Sorry about that. I'm trying to get to the bottom of the page here. So I have these pictures. You know, this is a modern Muslim, right? The moderate Muslim says, follow my Allah or he will kill you. Right?
Yeah.
He says, follow my Allah or I will kill you. This is the moderate Muslim, right? He doesn't want to do the things that the Quran commands him. So it's like, he'll do it. And this guy will never, ever do anything to stop that guy.
Mm-mm.
So even if you're a Muslim that doesn't want to do those things, you're not going to stop another Muslim from doing them, because then they'll turn on you, right? They won't stop anyone. So the idea that even though there are Muslims that don't want to kill you, that doesn't matter. It makes no difference at all. They're not going to try to stop anyone.
No.
Kind of good news in Texas. I don't know
It's too
if this
late.
is going to happen, if this is
Yeah.
going to make any difference, but he's
Yeah.
actually, you know, banning Sharia law, and he's making
So what are they
CARE,
gonna do?
the Council on American Islamic Relations, a terrorist organization.
So let me ask
The
you a question.
Muslim Brotherhood and CARE.
So what are they going to do?
Well, it's going to be, if they designate CARE as a terrorist organization, then they can jail anyone who has anything to do with that.
Okay, so they have 400 acres.
I know they built the big
They allowed
enclave
it all
there.
this.
Yeah. So I don't know what difference it's going to make, but it looks like he's
There's
at least
millions
attempting.
of illegals still in this country,
I
and they're
know.
going to just arrest all.
I know. It seems
It
preposterous.
seems pointless,
and like too
but
little,
okay,
too late. But
it's yeah.
but at least he's doing something.
at least he's doing
And the
something.
Muslims,
okay.
they know there's strength in numbers.
Yeah.
That's why they're
Yeah.
having kids like crazy and everything. They're moving
Yeah.
in real quickly
And
here.
that's why
They're
they
gonna just-
invaded our country. Yes.
Yeah.
While the borders were open. So anyway, yeah, it's just something in the news. this is kind of,
Yeah.
this really kind of, this is very disappointing. Yeah. Trump backing Tucker Carlson. And we know, we've learned that Tucker is literally our enemy. He is he's controlled opposition so big time. But here's what,
But that's Trump,
and this
though.
is the most disappointing thing about what he said. Because I love Trump. I love what he's doing for this country. But in some things, he's just kind of, he's so deceived. Like he doesn't understand.
Yeah.
He doesn't understand that interfaithism is a lie from Satan. He doesn't understand who Tucker Carlson is. And here's why he backs him. He said, well, I found him to be good. I mean, he said good things about me over the years.
See, that's what I'm saying.
And I think he's good. We had some good interviews. I did an interview with him where we had 300 million hits. That's the reason. It's like he doesn't really even know what Tucker Carlson is about, but he said good things about him.
He loves being loved. He loves being popular. Trump, and he just wants everybody to get along.
Yeah. I love Trump, but I wish he was stronger when it came to this kind of thing. I really do. Yeah. Oh, well. It is what it is.
It's about votes. It's about popularity.
I'm going to talk about this in a minute. We're going to switch gears now and talk about the that's the video I'm going to show you.
This is interesting.
But we're going to switch gears now. That's enough of the news. We're waiting for the confirmation of the covenant. Of course, we're going to keep watching and talking about that. But let's go back to the story of the Bible now. So last time we left off with the flood, right? We talked about creation, what happened at creation, the fall into sin, and then what happened over the years. And I have a timeline here of the ages of people that were in the Bible. And I also have it on my When is the End of the World page. I have this list where I actually went in the Bible, and it literally tells you that, Adam was 130 when he begat Seth. And this guy, Enos was 130, or Enos was 90 when he begot Canaan, and so on and so forth, all the way to Abraham. It tells us exactly how old they were and exactly how old the earth was at the time of Abraham. And so that's, it's not guesswork. It's right there in the Bible. And, I did it because I went to the book of Luke and looked at the genealogy list, and then went and looked for all of the people that it mentioned and saw how old they were. And this is exactly spot on because it's right there in the Bible. We don't have to guess. But you can see that people lived, hundreds of years before the flood. Yeah. Now, Enoch was taken without ever dying, right? Enoch, just like Elijah, was taken by God directly to heaven.
That'd be the best way to go.
Not necessarily heaven, but an alternate realm, right? And Methuselah was the oldest man, the 969, but he's only got people like Noah lived 950 years. There's people that lived a very long time. And I remember Noah was 600 years old at the time of the flood, and he was 601 years old after the flood. Yeah. That's this other picture I've got here. Wow. We were talking about the actual timeline of the flood last time, and this is a good representation of that. Where there were 7 days after they shut the door, and then the rain began, and 40 days of the rain and the fountains of the great deep, and then there was 150 days of just massive turbulence worldwide. If you think about it, when the ocean was sinking, there were ocean, the land beneath the ocean was actually dropping. It was sinking because of the weight. So that would have caused a major tsunami, right? Every time that happened, it caused tsunamis. So while the earth was sinking during the flood, the water was just raging across the world. And the Bible tells us that it was 150 days. the waters returned from off the earth continually. There, if you read the whole account in Genesis 7 and 8, and you see that it was 150 days and then another 150 days here at the end, where it took 150 days for the waters to calm down. And then, the land sunk, the mountains arose as the water was sloshing around and creating these massive upheavals. That's why you've got, vertical cliffs with footprints, like I said last time, because of all of that massive movement. And then remember I mentioned that Noah was 601 in the 601st year, in the first month, on the first day of the month, the waters were dried up. So remember, Noah was 600
January
when the
1st.
flood began, and then he was 601 when the flood was over, which is what this represents. It was actually 1 year and 17 days.
So what
from
was
the
the
beginning
first
to the
month
end.
and the first day of the month? No, I'm not asking you what it was. I'm saying what happened the first.
That's just his age. It's just talking about his age.
And he's
So it was the
So-
600th and first year in the first month and the first day. So
he was born on
Noah
New Year's
was
Day.
601 and 1 month is what that says.
Oh.
He was 601 years old and a month.
Oh,
That's what the
okay. So
first
he
month.
was born on December 1st.
No, they did not use the Gregorian calendar
Oh.
that we use.
Well, I'm
Not
saying
even
according
close to
to
that.
me.
Yeah. But according to Kel,
Me.
yes.
Book according to Kel.
it was. So,
Amen. Amen.
and actually, I was wrong. It's the 601st year in the first month on the first day. So it would have been January 1.
I know.
according
New
to-
Year's
to-
Day.
Yeah, New Year's Day. So, yeah, but it was a
According to
year.
Cal.
The actual timeline of the flood was a year.
Amen, brother.
And all the lifetimes. And then, we just recently did another live on the, at creation versus evolution. And it's on all my channels. It's on the archive live stream. But then it's also on, if you go to videos.prophecyandtruth.com, and if you go to the creation versus evolution under my book, the book section here, it has all of the chapters, but then it also has the evolution seminar, the creation versus evolution seminar that Diane did. She took a live stream that we did and broke it up.
Amen, brother.
And just added so much detail and videos corroborating everything. Definitely go and watch that seminar.
Mhm,
Yeah, because
very
we
good.
had a lot of fun learning about
Yeah.
evolution versus
Versus creation.
creation. Yeah.
And then-
creation.
Yeah. And then on this page, I also have this video from is Genesis history. That is a really, really good video
Oh, I gotta
documentary.
watch that one.
So, yeah, where am I? Get back to where I was. So we're talking about we've reached the end of the flood now.
Mhm.
So that's where we're at in the timeline. It was 1946
Mhm.
AA after Adam, right after creation. It was 1946 years in when. Actually, wait a minute. This is sin begins to rule again. Yeah, that's when Abraham was born. Actually, is 1946 was when Abraham was born. The flood actually came at 1656
Mm.
is when the flood happened. So it's 1656 years after creation is when God flooded the earth because man had become so evil and wicked. Remember, the thoughts of the hearts of men was only evil continually. And the earth was filled with violence. And it was just a wicked, evil place. And that's why God destroyed it. But because Noah still loved God and his 3 sons, that's why we're still here today. Thank God, right? So then 300 years later, and that's why I show you this picture, because Noah was 600 at the time of the flood. He still lived another 350 years after the flood. Noah lived. And one thing that's interesting about this is that, you know, when you watch our creation versus evolution seminar and look at all that documentation and the videos, then you'll see that the world was a completely different place before the flood. It was an entirely different place before the flood. That's why men lived so much longer. That's why animals got bigger. Animals lived longer. There were, you know, reptiles. Reptiles never stop growing no matter how old they get. So reptiles before the flood were huge. That's why we see these gigantic bones in the fossil record, because reptiles grew so big.
They were suddenly meat eaters after the flood, or how much time had gone by before that happened, by the time that happened?
The Bible doesn't tell us how much time had gone by at that point.
And then they would have gotten bigger and bigger and bigger, and they would have started eating people.
Right. Yeah. And they would have been eating each other after the flood. Yeah.
Wow.
So before the flood, though, that's when, you know, you had reptiles that were humongous. And that's where, you know, literally what the dinosaurs were. The huge bones in the fossil record are just gigantic reptiles that lived before the flood. But then notice this, after the flood, like Shem lived to be 600 years old. Then his son lived 483 and 433,
38.
464, 239. So in about 4 or 5 generations, the lifespan of man is dwindling.
Yeah, it sure is.
Massively.
Quickly, yeah.
And then all the way down after like 7 generations, it's down to only 150 years old, right? 200 years old. Abraham lived to be 175. And so we're having a hard time streaming to Facebook. Sometimes this is really annoying. And that's the godly woman, godly wife one.
Yeah.
That's too bad. So godly woman, godly wife, if somebody was watching on there, it probably just stopped. But hopefully they'll go to another channel and continue.
Yeah.
But so you can see the change in the lifespans. And the reason for that change was because the earth is a completely different place now. And it doesn't support long life. And as we're told in Hosea, right? In Hosea chapter 4, it tells us that it's because of man's evil, the sin and wickedness in the world, that the earth itself is mourning and everything is dying and wasting away because of sin. And, you know, yeah, the lifespans go way, way, way down after that. So that's an interesting thing to note, right? After the flood and how it all happened. Now remember, at the end of the flood, I'm going to go to, how old is the earth? Or no, I'm sorry. I'm going to go to, what happened? No, the flood changed a lot more than we think. That's the one I want to go to, sorry. So this particular page, and ever since Cloudflare had its problems the other day, I've been having issues.
Yeah.
I'm still having issues. Let me try just reopening it, see if I can get it to come up here. Well, how about I go to prophecyandtruth.com, which is my secondary site, which is basically a mirror, and I'll go to it from there. So, yeah, that's why I have 2 sites that have basically the same thing. I advertise them in different places, and if one goes down, the other one's still up. But I wanted to show these pictures that I have here, where immediately after the flood, there was a lot more land exposed. Like before the flood, there wasn't nearly the amount of water on the earth, right? Today, there's 70% of the earth is covered with water. Before the flood, it wouldn't have been anywhere close to that. There would have been some seas and lakes and rivers, but it was mostly landmass because all of the water from the flood is now on the ocean, right? And the deep oceans, the 7-mile deep chasm, right? That's where all the water went. But before the ice melted, after the flood, there were sheets of ice that came all the way halfway down the United States. And the land was exposed. There was much more land exposed immediately after the flood. And here's a scientific journal talking about that, where, there was so much more land exposed in the past. And they don't attribute it to the flood, but they attribute it to something they know that it happened in the past. Yeah, just click that. I don't know what you did. But this, scientific evidence actually shows that there was much more land exposed, and that's because of the ice sheets that were on the earth immediately after the flood. Here's a good representation here. And that was because of when the windows of heaven were opened, it brought the super cold of space down into the atmosphere for the first time ever. And all that massive rain froze solid and aligned itself over the poles, because ice at 300 degrees below zero is magnetic. So it naturally aligned over the poles of the planet.
Hello, World Rapture.
Hey, welcome.
Welcome.
So the reason I'm pointing this out is because this is what the world was a different place before the flood, but the world was actually a different place for, a few hundred years after the flood, until the ice reached a point where it stopped melting as fast. And so that's when we talk about what happened after the flood, there were a lot of changes. They were building cities on the edge of the oceans, and then in a few hundred years, they were being covered with water because the ice was melting and creating, covering a lot of the land that was exposed back then. But then the thing to note after the flood, when Abraham was born, was that the world was already turning back to its old wicked ways. Mm-hmm. In 300 short years after the flood, men were already turning evil again and turning against God. It's like, that just blows my mind, because, the flood would have been so in everybody's memory. Now there were people still alive at this point that went through the flood, like Shem and Noah was still alive when Abraham was born, and their sons. And, there were people alive that still remembered the flood, that went through it. And there were people that just were turning against God already. And that's it's like, it just blows my mind how it's just, men just hate God. And they're so full of pride that they can't acknowledge that there's a being more powerful and smarter than them. And that's what it really boils down to. A lot of people don't want to believe in God because they want to think that they're the most amazing thing that ever came. And
it's like you said before, the serpent told Eve, "You'll be as gods."
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, so I don't know what you're talking about there, but I want to, I hope that you'll send me an email, World Rapture, because I would love to talk to you about some of the things that you just said. I'm going to put a banner up here that has my email address on it. I would love for you to send me an email and we can have a chat. But so Abraham loved God. So 300 years after the flood, Abraham was born. And then remember, Noah was still alive for 50 years after Abraham was born. And Shem and Noah were definitely teaching everyone about God. And so Abraham, it says that Abraham loved the Lord, but you wonder, well, where did he learn about God? Well, it was from Shem and Noah because they were still alive. And when Abraham was 50, that was when Noah died, but Shem was still around. And so that's where Abraham, I speculate on that because the Bible doesn't say, but I'm sure that's where Abraham learned of God, was through Shem and Noah himself. And the world turning against the Lord, turning to sin and violence and wickedness again, this is why God said, all right, Abraham, you love me, so I'm going to choose you to father a people for myself.
Yeah.
Because already the world's turning to evil, but there's one man that loved the Lord. And that doesn't mean there wasn't anyone else that did. There certainly were. There's the priest Melchizedek, right? There were people alive during the life of Abraham that were godly men. But Abraham was the man that loved God, that God chose to make a people because the world was turning completely evil again.
Well, it was like Mary. Like, why did God choose Mary? I'm sure there were other young girls that loved Jesus.
Him,
or I guess
he chose her.
God then. So, but he just chooses who he chooses.
Exactly. Yeah. So Abraham loved God. He chose him to father a people for himself. Abraham, there's so much. We did a live stream a while ago on the life of Abraham, which was pretty cool. It was fun to do. If you read Genesis, there's so much that happened during Abraham's life that's recorded there. And, just the things that happened. But the main thing in the story of the Bible is that Abraham had Isaac, who was the son of the promise. Mm-hmm. And then Isaac had Jacob. And Jacob had 12 sons, which are the tribes of Israel. The 12 tribes of Israel are the 12 sons of Jacob because God renamed Jacob to Israel, just like he renamed Abram to Abraham, right? And he renamed Sarai to Sarah. He renamed Jacob to Israel. It's like God gave them special names directly from God, which is that would be so cool, right? That's actually one thing that Revelation tells us, that we'll be given a white stone that has our name on it. It's a name that God is going to give us specifically. That's going to be awesome. So the righteous woman to free the
all right,
sheep
so we'll post the banner again. Make sure you look at the banner.
So the banner has my email on it.
It's coming up right now.
That has all my channels. Facebook, email is right there coming across the screen.
prophecyandtruth.com.
Right,
that is his
so there
email.
it is right there. So
do you think that people aged really quickly after the flood or anything like that? Because they'd have to populate the planet pretty quickly.
Well, and that's what, just like at the time of the flood, remember, there was billions of people on the planet.
Yeah.
Because of the fertility of women and the longevity of their lives. And the first few generations lived for hundreds of years. So these people would have had hundreds of children, which then had thousands of grandchildren, which then had tens of thousands of great-grandchildren. And by the third generation, there would have been thousands and thousands of people already populating the earth. Mm-hmm. Yes. And that's where you get the cities that were already being built, and all the different things that were happening at the time of Abraham, or because there were already many thousands of people populating the earth after the flood.
Mm.
Absolutely. I think that was your question, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So yeah, definitely. But
Wow.
they started aging after a few generations, where they would start aging earlier, and lifespans were reduced a lot.
So they were all related.
Well, they were all came from those 8, right? The
Yeah.
3 sons of Noah, and then their 3 wives and his wife.
Mhm.
So there was still, and that's the thing is, Adam and Eve had all of the genes of every race of man. So did those 8 people that were on the ark, had all of the genes of every race of man that we see today.
And
Those 8
because they
people.
were all related, it just blows my mind how people could turn on God as quickly as they did.
I know.
Because they were raised
That quickly,
to
too.
love
They were
God.
raised a certain way, yeah.
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 But that's like
Yeah.
us having children, raising them a certain way, and one goes one way and the other one goes the other way.
That's true. Yeah. If you're like us and you have children that are grown, they can be complete opposites.
Yeah, I got one
Yeah.
that loves God and one that hates God.
Yeah. So
So
yeah. So the 12 sons of Israel became the 12 tribes of Israel. And then this is the covenant that God made, right? He promised that his seed, his offspring, would have the land of Israel. It's what was called the promised land by Israel, and and it would bless all the kindred of the earth, which, through all the generations came Jesus, right? From that, and blessed all the kindred of the earth through Jesus Christ. But this is part of this story that we're looking at. And I'm not going to go through all of the things that happened to Abraham. It's a fascinating story. And like I said, we just did a live stream a little while ago. I think it was a couple live streams long. It was really fun to do and very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely check it out. But I'm going to move on now to the sons of Jacob, and specifically Joseph, because this is where Israel came into the promised land after they were in Egypt, because there was a great famine, right? And if you know the story of Joseph, he was actually sold into slavery by his brothers because they hated him, because he was favored by their father, because he was the only son of the wife that Jacob really loved, Rachel.
Benjamin.
Well, I don't think Benjamin had been born yet. Or maybe he was, because Joseph knew about him.
Yeah, remember they had a
but Benjamin would have been
him.
very young at that time. He was much younger than Joseph, but his brothers hated Joseph because he was favored by their father, because Joseph and Benjamin were the only sons of the woman that he really loved. I mean, if you know the story, Jacob went to his, it was his
father-in-law.
It was his uncle, I believe, that he went to work for him, and he fell in love with his daughter, Rachel. And so he asked Laban for Rachel's hand in marriage, right? And Laban said, okay, work for me for 7 years, and then you can have my daughter. So Jacob worked for him for 7 years. And then at the marriage ceremony, Laban tricked Jacob into marrying his other daughter, Leah, instead of Rachel, because she was the elder daughter, and tricked him into marrying her. And so, and then Jacob had to work for another 7 years for Rachel. So he worked 14 years for Laban
bad for Leah
to marry Rachel. because he fell in love with Rachel. That was the love of his life, right? And I know Leah, it wasn't really Leah's fault. She had to do what her father told her, but
Yeah, I
it,
feel bad
it
for her.
wasn't, and it wasn't
because she
great
was
for
so
her.
hated,
Yeah.
and yet it was really, she
It
was
was her
probably a nice
father's
girl.
But
you
that's
know?
where Joseph came from, was from Rachel, and the woman that he worked for so long for and loved, and his brothers were jealous, really, is what it was.
Yeah, they were.
And so they sold him into slavery, but then God used all of that to make Joseph the second in command of all of Egypt. If you know the story, he was a slave, and then he was falsely accused of trying to rape the master's wife, and when she was actually trying to
She was
seduce
nothing
him,
but a
and he
hoe.
ran, so
She
she
was a
accused
hoe.
him, and then so he got thrown in prison. But then in prison, he did some dream interpretation that God gave him, which got him in front of Pharaoh to interpret Pharaoh's dreams, which predicted this massive famine that was coming on the world. And so there was 7 years of great plenty and then 7 years of massive famine. And so because of that prediction, Egypt was able to stock up food for 7 years to survive during the famine, and which happened. And that's why Joseph was made second in command of all of Egypt, answering only to Pharaoh. And so he became a great man in Egypt, right? And his brothers ended up coming for food during the famine, and so that's where he got he got to see his brothers and his father again, and brought them to Egypt, and Pharaoh actually gave them the land of Goshen to live in, and that's why they ended up in Egypt. So then during his time, or during the time in Egypt, and I want to point this out. A lot of people ask, well, why would God allow them to be enslaved? Because after the Pharaoh that knew Joseph died, and a new Pharaoh came, then after, it was a couple hundred years later, and they were like, why are we favoring these Israelis? Why? And they were so fertile. They were growing in populations just massively. And the Pharaoh was actually worried about that they were going to get too large and it would be a threat to him. And so, he became they decided to enslave them, to, control them.
Yeah.
So why did God allow that? People ask. Why did God allow Israel to become enslaved? Well, it tells us here in Joshua. And it says in Joshua 24:14, now therefore fear the Lord and serve him in sincerity and in truth, and put away the gods which your fathers served on the other side of the flood and in Egypt, and serve ye the Lord. It tells us, and they were serving the gods of Egypt, Ra and whatever else gods they had, That's why God allowed that to happen, because they had turned away from God and were serving the gods of Egypt.
And of the flood.
Yeah.
No, it's before the flood. Their fathers had other gods, right? But in Egypt is where they were serving the gods of Egypt. And that's why God allowed it. That's why he allowed them to be enslaved. But they grew massively while they were there in Egypt. In Numbers 146, it shows that there were over 600,000 men of military age.
Wow.
That were in the desert after coming out of Egypt.
That's a lot of, yeah.
So, and that's just the men of military age. That doesn't include women and children and elderly, right? So there were easily
Close to 1 million people.
Probably a couple million,
Really?
maybe even 3 million or more, because there would have been at least as many women and children and elderly men, but But the women, they tried to, women were precious because women were the bringers of life, right? They were able to have children.
The bringers of life.
So there would have been at least double that, probably triple or quadruple that number of all of them, right? So they grew massively during that time. And that's why the Pharaoh was afraid, because they were growing way too fast and much faster than the Egyptians, right? They were afraid they were going to get too large. And so that's why he did what he did. And that's why God allowed it to happen. So then, of course, God used Moses to lead the Israelites out of Egypt, which is another, awesome story when you look at everything that happened with Moses and the Exodus coming out of Egypt. And this is one of the things that I have this video I'm going to show you, because what happened at the Red Sea was that the Bible shows us, it says plain black and white, that there were walls of water where they walked through the sea. It didn't go out and the sea sank and they walked on land and there was just sea over here and sea over there. No, there were walls of water on either side, just like it shows in this picture. And when Israelites got to the other side, the Egyptians were chasing them, and God brought the water back down on top of the Egyptians, a great army of Egyptians that were chasing them to try to bring them back because they were losing their slaves. Even after all the plagues and everything that God put on Egypt, because the Pharaoh was just, at first the Pharaoh was just saying no because of his own hard heart. But then if you read through that, you'll notice that God, towards the end of that, the plagues were so bad, what God did is he seized control of Pharaoh's mind. It actually says that. He seized the mind of Pharaoh and made him continue to say no, to make an example of him for all the nations of the world to fear God. Oh. So this is what I wanted to show you, because I have a little video I'm going to show just a little bit of. I've got it listed here, right? There's this new investigation from, if you know who Ron Wyatt was, he was a man who discovered this a long time ago. He died in 1999 or something like that, but he had all of these discoveries and left all of his documentation and everything, all the evidence behind for people to study. And he had actually discovered chariot wheels and things like that in the bottom of the Red Sea. There's a part of the Red Sea, it's like thousands of feet deep, but there's one part of the Red Sea that all the way across it has a shallow path where it's still a few hundred feet deep, but it's way shallower than the rest of the sea all around it, and it goes all the way across. And that's where they find all of these artifacts now. They found horse bones and human bones and chariots and all of the weapons and everything that they had. And I'm going to show you just a little bit of this video, just the first few seconds of it, because it's so cool. These people went just last year they had like a $10 million donation to go and do this research. And with modern equipment, they actually went down there and found all of that. It's all true, that there's this massive Egyptian army that was destroyed right there. It proves the account of the Bible. So just a few seconds of this. It's interesting.
If there were chariots found in the Red Sea, it would probably have something to do with the crossing of the sea.
There is a battlefield at the bottom of the Red Sea. We're not talking about a single shipwreck. We're talking about an entire Egyptian army. A recent high-tech dive has just uncovered what amateur explorers have claimed for years. Hundreds of chariot wheels, horse skeletons, and human remains perfectly preserved in coral.
Is there any physical evidence on the seabed? Yes, there is. And we have some examples. Skeletons of humans, skeleton parts of horses and bulls, chariot wheels.
This finding doesn't just support an ancient story, it threatens to rewrite it. And get this. Egyptologists are completely silent. The implications of this find are staggering.
And Egypt's always tried to hide the fact that there ever was the Exodus. They've tried to erase it from their history, but I've got information. Actually, Diane did some research a couple of years ago and found a bunch of information about how they actually have ancient carved tablets where it has the record of the Israelites being in Egypt
And
that happening.
His name was not Joseph.
What?
Joseph.
No, it was on Joseph. I told you that this couple had went to Egypt.
Huh? I'm waiting.
I know. What?
Joseph?
You mean Moses?
No, I'm talking about Joseph.
Yeah.
I told you that that I was wondering if anybody even talked about that.
Oh.
But they
right.
did have a painting of Joseph on the wall.
Yeah.
And they didn't call him Joseph.
Well, they would have probably had an Egyptian name for him.
Yeah.
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 So it was Joseph. It wasn't. I don't think I did anything on Moses.
Well, Moses came much later than Joseph. Yeah.
Yeah.
But,
yeah. It was Joseph that I done.
But the fascinating thing is that this proves that actually happened, and the records that have been discovered of these events are actually chronicled in stone that the Egyptians try to ignore and try to say never happened, but they've found ancient records that actually corroborate that all these things did actually happen. Even though they try to deny it, it's been found. So it's pretty fascinating. But it's proven, and it's that video. If you watch it, just know that towards the end of that video, they start trying to say what could have happened in science and nature to make this happen. Yes. But that God did it. Yeah. It didn't take a natural event. God made this happen. There were walls of water on each side. And they say that history is being rewritten. No, history is being confirmed by this.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah, they tell you where they think they may have crossed because it wouldn't have been so deep. And I'm thinking, how would they get a wagon across a river?
Even if it was a foot deep, they're not going to get a wagon.
Well, and you have to read the scripture, because the scriptures say it was dry land that they went across, and that there were literally walls of water on either side. That's what the scriptures, it describes for us. So there wasn't just shallow water or anything like that. It was a miracle from God, and it was the power of God that did it.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So that, then they spent 40 years, and there were literally millions of them, right? Traveling through the wilderness was a huge undertaking. And they would travel for a while and they'd camp. And then, God had a pillar of fire at night and a pillar of smoke during the day that they would follow. And when the pillar stopped, they would stop. And then when it moved, then they would pack up and move and follow wherever God led them. And remember, they spent 40 years in the desert because they didn't trust God.
And they were complaining.
And to lead them, and they were complaining. And so God said, all right, none of you are going to go into the promised land. Your children will. And so they spent 40 years in the desert until they all died off. And their children were the ones that went into the promised land.
Can you imagine?
They weren't even that far.
I know they wandered around all
I think that is,
and then finally ended up
sickening humor. Humorous, sickening.
It's like God did this miraculous thing and brought them out of slavery, and they were complaining.
The complaining got them 40 years of never getting there when it was only like a couple
then they were
blocks.
afraid to go into the land. Yeah. And it's like, trust
That's
God.
what griping and complaining will do.
Yeah. So then, but eventually they were brought into the promised land. So, that's where
The children.
the land of Israel actually began, was at that point in time. And then, one of the things that they're fighting today is Palestine, right? Well,
Yeah.
back then it was the Philistines, and God told them, don't keep anyone, drive them all out. Don't let anyone stay.
Right.
And they didn't.
And now they
even
have
took
the
wives
Muslims.
of some of them, and mixed with them. And God said that if you don't, there'll be a thorn in your side, and they're still a thorn, because the Palestinians, right, the Arabs in that area of the world are descendant of the Palestinians that have been the enemies of Israel ever since
There
it
you
began,
go.
because they disobeyed God. That's
I mean, I don't know what
So-
to
And
tell you.
wasn't Aaron the one who started getting the people to worship false gods?
Well, Aaron, while Moses was on the mount getting the 10 Commandments, remember, Aaron actually created a golden calf
Yeah.
for them to worship. Yeah, and that's like, what was he doing? That would have been the Baal of the Old Testament, which is what the Baal of the Old Testament is what became the Hubal and the Allah of Islam today.
There you go.
That's where that God came from. Yeah. Yeah, it's
The disobedience
crazy.
of parents can really screw things up.
Yeah. That study we did on the sins of the father a little while ago, really, what the parents do affects the children's lives to several generations. And it absolutely does. And even further in this case, right?
Yeah. No.
Yeah, you should make no league with the inhabitants, but they did. Yeah.
And now they're
Yeah.
dealing with the Muslims to this very day.
Yeah. And that was
And they have children like rabbits,
yeah.
the Muslims.
Well, they are today. Yeah.
Whew.
They're out,
They're outnumbering.
outnumbering everyone, but that's all.
Even the
that's-
Catholics.
That's bringing the end time. That's bringing what is going to happen. The statue in Daniel 2 shows us that the fifth section is the Holy Roman / Islamic empires that were broken and divided, partly strong, partly broken, always fighting with each other, but they still exist today. If you look at my prophecy in the present time study or the videos, you'll see that the Holy Roman / Islamic empires actually still exist today, but they're called the EU and the Arab League now, and they control the same area of land. And it's going to be what the Antichrist uses to rule the world.
And that's very interesting that when God said to drive them completely out, they're going to be a thorn. That's the thorn. The end times, that's the thorn. The Antichrist is going to come out of that thorn there.
Yeah.
That
It's
is
the
just
end
so
result of it.
interesting how we can just look back thousands of years of history that's leading
I
up
know.
to the return of Christ.
Yeah, and we can see exactly how it's going to play out in
Unbelievable.
the end of the story, because God told us how it's going to end. Yeah, it's awesome. So then we go into the time of the judges, because Israel didn't have a king, because God is their king, right? But they had judges, because it's like when Moses was trying to rule all of the Israelis, and he was having a hard time because there were millions of them, and there was way too much for him to handle. So his father-in-law actually gave him advice to create magistrates and divide up the tasks among people, and create people to help him and delegate. And but then if there was something they couldn't handle, then they brought it to him, right? So he taught him how to do that. And that's what Israel ended up. They had judges for 450 years. And it actually tells us that it was in the scriptures, it tells us that it was 450 years of judges. But then all of the other nations around them had kings. They're like, well, we want a king. And
You
God's
have
like,
a king.
and God, the scriptures even say, that God was like, well, I'm your king. Why do you need a king? But they wanted a king. They desired a king. So God gave them Saul, who was a horrible king. He was a big,
Here you go.
strong, tall man, kingly, but he took all of their kids and drafted them into his armies and he was an awful king.
They wanted a king.
They wanted a king. Be careful what you wish for, right?
Oh, and that just
And who made him the king? God?
What?
Who made him the king? God?
Yeah.
Oh.
God had Samuel.
Because it was like, you want a king?
Make him
There
king.
you go.
Yeah.
Here's your king.
Yeah.
This is what it gets you.
Yeah. And they didn't like it. But it's like, well, God's your king. Why do you need a man to be your king?
Yeah.
But then, of course, after Saul, then David became king.
Yeah.
Which David, the great king and a man after God's own heart. That's what God said.
Yeah.
That David was a man after his own heart. And
wow, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
And that's why I love to read the Psalms, and just see David's heart, his love for God. And it's awesome. I aspire to be like David, right? Really. To be a man after God's own heart, to be loving and compassionate and kind, as God is. And but David was the ancestor and bloodline that led to Jesus Christ. And he began the golden age of Israel. Solomon, David's son, who became king after him, was the wisest man that ever lived, literally.
Yeah.
Wow.
Because God asked Solomon what he wanted.
Mm-hmm.
And Solomon said he wanted wisdom
To
to rule the people well. So God says, because you asked for wisdom, you're going to get that, but you're also going to have everything else. He gave them, Solomon was the greatest king that ever lived, and Israel was the greatest nation on the earth at that point in time.
Wow.
Kings and queens came from all over the earth to visit Solomon.
Because he was wise.
And they gave him their daughters to marry, to create alliances with him. And that's why he had 400 wives or something like that. It was because all the nations wanted to get in with him, so they would give him their daughter to marry.
Yeah, but it was just, he probably didn't even know who they were.
Some of them, I'm sure,
he just took care of them.
Never even knew.
They had their own little people to take care of them. Yeah, he probably didn't even okay, you're my wife. Oh, I haven't even seen you before. I mean.
But it was literally the golden age of Israel, and it was Israel was the greatest nation.
Didn't Trump say this is the golden age of America or something?
That's what he's saying about his term here. Yeah. And that's what he's trying to begin, right? The golden age of America.
Oh, it's going to bring in an age.
Satan and Satan's minions are fighting him tooth and nail. And, like we've talked about, we don't know where the United States is going to be during the time of the tribulation. We have no idea whether we're even going to be a third world country at that point, greatly reduced in power, or maybe we'll just capitulate and just be, bowing to the Antichrist. We'll see.
Or maybe this will be one of the wars that the Antichrist is.
It could be,
fighting
but the United States being as powerful as it is, if the Antichrist were fighting us, we would win. If we have the power that we have today. So there's got to be some reduction in power.
Yeah,
at the very least, if we're going to be fighting the wars. Yeah. So then for 500 years, they had kings. So it was 450 years of judges, 500 years of kings, and then the time of Daniel, where Daniel was a young man at the time of the Babylonian captivity. And by the time the Medes and the Persians took over, Daniel was an old man, but he was still serving under Cyrus and the Medes and the Persians kings. And so that's when he got some of the prophecies that we see today, or some of the prophecies that are recorded, right? Some of the prophecies came from under Nebuchadnezzar, and then there were some that came under Cyrus, the king of Persia, I believe it was. Yeah, pretty sure he was the king of Persia. Don't quote me on that because I need to look it up to be sure. But yeah, so that's one thing that this is kind of the stepping off point in the story of the Bible from when God created the world. Men turned evil. He flooded the world and started over with Noah and his family. Men again started turning evil within a very short time. So then he chose Abraham to have a people for himself, created the nation of Israel. And then if you read through Judges and Kings and Chronicles, Kings and Chronicles are two parallel accounts. They talk about the same kings. It's just two different parts. Some of them have different information than the other ones do, but it's a parallel record, Kings and Chronicles. And if you read through those, you see that Israel kept going back and forth, where they would turn against God. And then, so God would stop protecting them, and nations would come in and enslave them and make war with them and do things. And then they would turn back to God, and God would forgive them and then restore the kingdom again. And it happened over and over and over, back and forth. And every time it shows the patience and the long suffering of God.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because he kept forgiving them. They would repent and he would forgive them. And back and forth and back and forth. But then finally, at the end, they were just totally turned away from God. Except, there were young men like Daniel who loved the Lord. Daniel and Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they were all men that loved God. So when the time of Babylon came, Israel was just an apostate nation that didn't love God anymore. And so he allowed Babylon to wipe them out, literally. And there were in Jeremiah and Ezekiel and Isaiah and many of the Old Testament prophets were prophesying to Israel about the destruction that was going to come if they didn't turn back to God. And they ignored them. And they even, it's like Jeremiah, they threw him in a pit, a miry pit. And, they were awful to the prophets of God because they hated them. They liked the false prophets. They loved the false prophets that told them things that they wanted to hear.
Like today.
Like today. People love the preachers that tickle their ears and tell them everything they want to hear. And they hate people like me who tell them the truth.
Yeah.
I'm not a prophet, but I'm a teacher as God has led me to be. And I'm here to teach the truth. And I don't care about followings. I don't care, about anything except helping you to understand the truth. That's why I'm here. But anyway, I'm digressing. So at the time of Daniel, he was a young man, and it was 70 years that they were under Babylonian captivity. And then the Medes and the Persians took over, and Daniel was still around then. And that's when he prophesied about the 70 weeks. When at the time of when the command was given to restore and rebuild Jerusalem, from that point on, that's when you had the first 69 weeks. And weeks are weeks of years in this prophecy. So 69 weeks was actually 483 years. It was a total of 70 weeks. But the last week, the last 7 years, is broken off in the prophecy itself as a separate week. And we see why now, because it's actually a 2,000-year break between the first 69 weeks, the first 483 years of the prophecy from the time of the command that was given to rebuild Jerusalem was 483 years to Christ. So I believe I have it in here. I didn't put it in this document, but it's in. I should add it in here because that was the prophecy of 70 weeks. Or do I have the prophecy of 70 weeks in here? I think so. Iron and the clay. That's Daniel 2, the 70 weeks. It was under Cyrus of Persia and Darius the Mede. And this is the prophecy of the 70 weeks. There's, I talk a lot about the prophecies of Daniel. We look very closely at Daniel 2, Daniel 7, Daniel 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. Those are all prophecies about the time of the Antichrist. And I've got tons of videos and documentation about those prophecies. I'm trying to see if I actually put the quote in here from Ezra. Well, I just note that it was Ezra in chapter 1. King Cyrus actually made the proclamation to rebuild Jerusalem. And so then 483 years of that 70-week prophecy was up to Christ. It was absolutely fulfilled with Christ. And then, like I said, that final week, that last week is broken off in the prophecy and we're still waiting for that final week to start, because that's where we're going to see this. He's going to confirm the covenant with many for 1 week in this last week. And in the midst of the week, he shall cause the sacrifice and oblation to cease, and which is the abomination of desolation that Jesus talks about in Matthew 24, when he said, when you see the abomination of desolation, when the overspreading of abominations, he shall make it desolate, right? That's the Antichrist. When he takes over the world in the midst of the week, in the midst of this final week, that's the abomination of desolation that Jesus talked about. And he said, when this happens, when you see this, then if you're in the area of Judea, flee, because Judea and Samaria today are the hotbed of conflict. And when the Mahdi Antichrist sits in the temple claiming to be God, he's going to tell all the Muslims in the area of Judea and Samaria to kill all their Jewish neighbors, I'm sure. And that's why Jesus said, when you see that, run. Don't even get a change of clothing if you're in the area of Judea. So that's going to be, that's actually the event we're waiting for, is the confirmation of the covenant. That's why we keep talking about this. We're watching this literally happen before our eyes. We're seeing it come about.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's awesome. So we have, there's a lot to be said about Daniel, but, it's from Adam to Abraham was 2,000 years, right? It was 1956 was the year Abraham was born. And then from Abraham to Joseph was 250 years. Joseph to Moses, approximately 400 years. And it was 430 years, about 470 years of the time from Moses or the 470 years from the time of Joseph into the Exodus. And then from Moses to David through the time of the judges was 450 years. And then 500 years of judges. And then from the time of Daniel, from when he was a young man to Christ, because remember, Daniel was an old man after the Babylonian captivity under Cyrus the king. And that's when, so we're already almost 100 years in, or over 100 years in, actually. And then when Cyrus gave the command to rebuild Jerusalem, then it was 483 years later. So we're close to 600 years from when Daniel was a young man to Christ, which gives us a total of 2,000 years from Abraham to Jesus. So we've got 2,000 years from Adam to Abraham, 2,000 years from Abraham to Jesus, and now we're 2,000 years from Jesus to now. And I've got all the scriptures and examples of what the timings of the time from the sojourning of the children of Israel into Egypt, and when they were brought out, when Abraham was given the promise, and he was 75 years old when God first called him out of Haran to sojourn in a strange land. He was 75. So from that point, from Abraham being 75 years old, is what we're talking about, the time frame of going into Egypt and then coming out into Israel. So I know I'm not going to go through all the details, but it's certainly here. It's here on this site, on this timeline, but it's also, I also talk about that in a couple other documents. I can't remember where, but it's on the, I believe it's on, let me just show you, because if we go home here, we go to, when is the end of the world? And you scroll down to where I have this timeline of, here. I go through this again, where I talk about all the timing in Egypt and all that here on this when is the end of the world page. So if anyone's interested in reading and studying that themselves, because I always want people to read and study for themselves and not just take my word for anything. So we have a total of 6,000 years, literally, from Adam to now. And then, of course, we have the birth of Christ, which we're at a quarter after. And so this is a good time to stop at the next, at the 4,000 year mark, at the time of Christ. And so we'll pick this up and do a part 3 and continue the story of the Bible on Sunday when we come back. So I will say a prayer and we'll say goodbye. So thank you, Lord, for everything, for all you've done, Lord, all you're doing and all you're about to do. We're so grateful that you preserved your word for us. So we know the end of the story. We know exactly how it ends. We know what we're waiting for. And we're just so excited. We're so grateful, Lord. I just can't wait to be with you. Thank you, Jesus. Amen.
Amen. Okay, so let's go from the bottom. World Rapture, Robert, Lainey, Bob, and Sue.
Yeah. Appreciate
Thanks
you
for
all.
being here.
Love you all. And we always appreciate questions and comments in the chat. And everyone that doesn't chat, we're just glad you're here.
Yeah.
And we
Just
love
keep
all
coming
of
back.
Yeah.
you. Yeah. Yeah. And then we know there's a lot of people that watch later, told us they can't make it at this time. And so we're just, we love all of you. And, you know, that's why we're here, because
Bob,
we love you.
Bob said, thanks for this great study, Dan. And Lainey says, thank you. Good night.
Yeah, you're welcome. Love you both.
Yeah. We love you guys. Sissy, love you.
I love you guys.
We
So
love
thank you, Diane.
Happy birthday.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, that was yesterday.
Yeah.
I know.
Love, Bob says, love all my brothers and sisters. We
Yeah,
love
we
you
love you
too,
too,
Bob.
Bob.
Yes, we do.
We do. Okay, so would you kindly smash that like button, give it a big thumbs up, don't forget, and then subscribe to this channel, and then turn on notification bell so you don't miss any great uploads. And then share this show. Share. Please share. You know what you need to do. For those that do share, I really appreciate that.
Yeah. You know who you are. We
You know
love
who you are.
Yeah.
Love
And-
you so
And
much.
you know, God sees you doing that too.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
praise God.
Yeah. Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Okay.
Thank you, Diane. Love you, sister.
She showed up even
Love
though
you
you're
too.
late. We know she comes straight from work,
Yeah.
comes in,
Yeah.
turns it on. I don't even know if she even has anything to eat.
No.
She
I
doesn't.
got
She
some
doesn't
little
even
things
eat,
of
and
cookies.
you have no idea how much we appreciate that.
Yeah, you are a trooper. That's
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah,
Just
you are.
No time for it.
But now you go eat. So we
No,
love.
it's too late.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll have a sandwich.
Yeah, I love you so much. See everybody on Sunday. We're gonna get out.
Love
of
you
here.
all. See you
Love
Sunday.
you.
Love you.
And